Bear Independent Brief, 18 August 25. President Trump has initiated an unprecedented federal takeover of Washington, D.C.'s law enforcement, deploying 800 National Guard troops to the nation's capital, with hundreds more on the way from Republican-led states. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster authorized 200 Guard personnel, while West Virginia is sending 300 to 400 troops, and Ohio has committed 150 MPs, military police. The deployment comes under Title 32 funding, meaning the federal government foots the bill. Pentagon Press Secretary Kingsley Wilson has said that the Guard personnel will not be making arrests, but may, quote, temporarily limit the movement of an individual who has entered restricted or secured area without permission, end quote. The president has framed this as an effort to, quote, take our capital back, end quote, claiming the city faces, quote, complete and total lawlessness and has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, end quote. However, the reality on the ground tells a different story. Or does it? Violent crime in Washington has actually been trending downward since a 2023 spike, according to Metropolitan Police Department records. However, analyst comment, as S2 would say, their record keeping is shit. And many, many jurisdictions around the country, specifically of one particular political persuasion, have been cooking the books on crime statistics for at least the last decade. Coffee for the win. As one longtime D.C. resident put it, quote, I think he doesn't know what he's talking about, he being Trump. I'm a little old white man, and I walk around safely all the time, end quote. Well, what neighborhood are you walking around in, little old white man? This federal intervention is bigger than just any troop deployment. Attorney General Pam Bondi, she of the files that don't exist, attempted to install Drug Enforcement Administration Administrator Terry Cole as a, quote, emergency police commissioner, end quote, who would assume full operational control over the D.C. police. The effort was temporarily blocked when D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwab filed a lawsuit calling it a hostile takeover of the department. Schwab declared it a, quote, very important win for home rule today, end quote, though the broader federal control remains in place. Unlike states, Washington, D.C. lacks the same constitutional protections, giving the president broader powers to deploy federal forces. However, by law, Trump cannot extend his 30-day takeover of D.C. law enforcement without congressional approval, and Congress is currently on summer recess. Do we stop paying them while they're on break, or is this paid vacation? Rhetorical question. We all know the answer. The president would need to declare a national emergency to continue beyond the initial time frame. The administration has already set its sights on other cities, including Baltimore, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Oakland, all led by mayors who African American Mayors Association President Van Johnson noted, quote, were either black or perceived to be Democrats, end quote. Causation versus correlation. Why has everything got to be about race? If your city is a hellscape, maybe that's the fault of the leadership, regardless of what race or political persuasion they may be. These mayors have pointed out that their crime statistics actually show significant decreases because they're not reporting them and or classifying the crimes incorrectly. Intentionally incorrectly. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson highlighted, quote, historic progress driving down homicides by more than 30% and shootings by almost 40% in the last year alone, end quote. Baltimore officials report historic decreases in homicide and non-fatal shootings since 2022, while Oakland saw a 21% drop in homicides and 29% decrease in violent crime in the first half of this year compared with the same period last year. Local resistance has emerged through protests, with hundreds gathering peacefully in D.C. to oppose the federal takeover. Demonstrators chanted, shame, and, quote, Trump must go now, end quote, while marching from DuPont Circle to the White House. Mason Weber, a Maryland resident who attended the march, expressed concern about a serious ethical and legal breach, adding that, quote, "there's been no check and balance of the systems of power," end quote. Tony Saruga, very interesting reporting on this on X. There were 318 people in attendance at this air quote protest. All of them appear to be paid actors, and 87% of them returned to dwellings that had a value of $850,000 or more, and 30-something% of them, of that 87%, returned to dwellings who had a value in excess of $2.5 million. All of these protesters were tied to get out the movement type paid protest organizers, which George Soros, remember that guy, has dumped most recently another $20 million into. So this is paid, feigned outrage, not actual outrage. For long-form commentary, stay tuned later today. Bear and Friends will be out later this Monday morning. Happy Monday, everybody. Regardless of how we may feel about the federalizing, whatever that word is, of the law enforcement in D.C. and elsewhere, the powers that be continue to try and push us towards the brink. A house divided against itself cannot stand. I'll see you guys here in a little bit. Make sure to check out refugemedical.com for all of your pre-hospital trauma medical needs and the best training on planet Earth. See you when I see you.